So it's recording. All right, good morning. I am here with Morgan from Fidelity National Title, and Shauna was just saying how funny she is. All right, so that was a good way to start. I have a bunch of documents right here, and you're going to go over them. So This is going to be informative. Katie, when you're marking the time for me, we're going to have a bunch of different documents. If you were to guess how many would you say we have?
22.
22. Okay, she gave me a very specific number. I like that a lot. Yes, you can already clearly tell she's very funny. So as we're going through this, I'm going to hit the bell. She's going to introduce each item, and we'll kind of go through that. So this is our preferred title company, fully endorsed by Mike Acquisto, and I would greatly prefer if the agents would always use this title company. It does matter to us, and I would like that. So help me out if you can. I have the screen sharing. I'm going to pull up the first document here, and I'll go ahead and hit the bell. I don't know why, but I like to do that. So go ahead and talk about this. You're in charge.
Hi, guys. I'm Morgan. So this is going to be a form that we're going to send out at the very beginning of the transaction, and we're trying to collect the data to be able to facilitate all the things to complete what we need in here. So we're just asking your seller to give us their basic information, and we're also looking here, if you'll notice in identification information, we're asking them for their social security number. Now, people do sometimes have an issue with this, and we do have some workarounds where we can either make it password protected, or they can complete the rest of the form, call us, and we can complete it on the phone with them, or of course, they're welcome to our office. You're also seeing here that we're asking if they are a U.S. citizen. The reason we're asking for that is we need to know if we're going to require a FERPTA affidavit. So what we're needing to see is if we're going to have holdback taxes there. And we're also now asking for the marital status affidavit so we can make sure that we're making the right people sign at closing. So if there is a husband or a wife involved that is maybe not on the contract because they've been separated, we're trying to gather that information so we don't have any hiccups. And then here's obviously the payoff information, the homeowners association, the survey, and how they're going to close. Now we're going to go down to the next document here. Now this document is
only... hang on, let's hit the bell, right?
Oh, boom.
All right, bell, next item.
Okay, so this one is going to be a collection form only used in a death situation where probate hasn't been done. So this is going to be something that is not sent out on every transaction, but something that would be, if we see that Billy in the transaction has passed away, we're going to send this out and collect information so that we can prepare the heirship affidavit with our attorneys and send that out to make sure that we can get that title vested correctly. And as you can see here, we're just asking for a lot of specific information for our example, Billy. Now we're getting over to the identity affidavit. And the identity affidavit is going to be used in a situation where we're picking up on something on title that is maybe not the seller. So in the case that we found an abstracted judgment with a similar name, we're going to put it on the title. We're going to use this document to make the seller swear to us that that is not them.
So this would happen often, maybe like my father and myself have the same name.
That's correct.
Different middle initial. We live in the same city, different things like that. So
that's right.
That would be very similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Bob Smith.
Oh, yeah. And there's a lot of them. Okay. All right. What else? You hit the bell. Do it. All right. Good. Well done.
So then we're going to come over to the next document, which is going to be the affidavit of debts and liens. So this is going to be a closing document. Those other documents we were talking about are documents you're going to see before closing. Now, the importance of these documents is a lot of times your clients are looking to you for confirmation that what we're giving them should be there, you know? So I just wanted to run through these documents with you so you knew what we're putting in front of them at the closing table. So the purpose of this document is for us to make sure that all the information we have from the seller is true and accurate. So on number one, we're just looking to make sure that there's no one living on that property that we don't know about or any leases that are in place that haven't been disclosed. Number two, we're looking for unpaid debts of personal property. That could be items such as improvements. It could be, a hot tub in the backyard that is one from, Costco that you can remove. Then you're going to come down to number 3. This is going to be for any kind of improvements that were done. So you don't have any painters out there that weren't paid for. The famous one, the roof, where you had a roof put on and nobody knew about it and you swindled them out. I mean, we want you on this affidavit as telling us no. And then number 4 is the liens. So I'm going to put in number 4, the payoff principal balance and the payoff lender that the seller has at closing. And what we're making them swear to here is that that's the only payoff that they have. All right, this is number 6 is just no lawsuits or claims against the owner. And then they're going to be obviously signing.
All right, so that is all of kind of what's on the property as far as liens go.
That's right.
It's breaking it down. It's summarizing in different categories.
That's right.
It's making them really think about it.
That's right.
Because sometimes you ask the question like, hey, are there any debts on the home? And you're like, no. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. That
You're exactly right.
Yep. So.
And or my favorite, or what does happen is, oh, what about those solar panels? And they're like, well, were you making payments on them? Did you have a lease on them? And it starts up the conversation. People don't mean to exclude that data. They might not know that it was something that needed to be disclosed. So it kind of brings all so that the buyer's getting full disclosure of what we're dealing with here.
All right. So this brings up the next one. We'll hit the bell on this one. Go ahead.
Marital status affidavit. All right, so on this document, I'm going to be asking the seller to tell me their marital status. On number 3, I'm going to ask them if they're married, to whom, and what year they were married. If they're single, I'm going to ask them to complete this box here. If they're a widower, I'm going to ask them to complete here. And if they're divorced, they're going to complete right here. The reason I'm asking them for this data is I want to make sure that, let's just say in the example, that we were divorced. And I bought the home in 2002, and we were divorced in 2004. And for some reason, we didn't pick up on anything in our title work that said that the divorce had been final. Let's say it's even still pending. And we go to the closing table. We don't know that the husband's interest has been fully vested out. We don't know he's been taken care of and there's any balance there. So if these questions were answered a certain way, I might require that the husband comes and joins us in titling out. Which you remember on that seller information sheet, we should have already seen this. So this is just going into a full affidavit on the same facts. And then here, number 4, we're going to have you complete the last 10 addresses in case we needed to do a more intense name search.
Okay. So now let's talk about this one
Okay.
here. Have you came up with any interesting stories as it relates to this one with things that are like, whoa, wait a minute?
Yes, I've had some really good things. Well, I mean, I've had somebody who was there with their husband, and unfortunately, they had a divorce before, but the husband did not know.
Mm-hmm.
So it can create for a hostile environment. That did not actually close, so I won't put that. I won't put that in the closed files there. That got. Muffins couldn't fix that issue. Let's just say that. So, I mean, it's really about disclosure on this document. A lot of people, we should see something on that seller information sheet to tell us that there's somebody involved, and we should already have come to you so that we kind of know, okay, hey, where's Billy?
That and the stuff prior.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why that information sheet is so important, because it's telling us the story of what documents here to take to closing. So we should have already jumped in front of this and told you, hey, Mike, what we need to do here is we've got Billy, and I need to know more about Billy.
All right. Well, some other things that you might come across as well is, well, I was married in Vegas. Does that matter?
Yes.
That does matter?
I mean, no, it's the same as anywhere else. I mean, as long as you huh?
No, I was not. No, Shauna, I was not married in Vegas.
A marriage certificate is a marriage certificate.
Okay, so it doesn't matter what city.
Yeah, that's right.
What about if I was married by an ordained minister somewhere, but not through the church?
Marriage certificate is a marriage certificate.
Okay, I'm an ordained minister.
Well, I don't need to be married today.
All right, yeah.
I'll call you next week and see if I've got anybody in line.
All right. That's
Just
fine.
kidding.
I have one in 2 weeks. I have a marriage lined up in 2 weeks.
Do you really?
Yeah. No,
That's
I do.
pretty cool.
Yeah. True fact. All right. So, and then what about in a different country? Because we do have a lot of international people now.
Sure. So, okay. So the definition of marriage is if they claim that they're married. So in the situation of somebody that's out of the country or somebody that's possibly a same-sex marriage, all those items, or even a common law. Sorry, I didn't have my coffee yet. A common law marriage. As long as you're telling me you're married, I don't need the proof of your marriage. I just need to know that you have made claim that you're married in this state.
Okay. But if they are married in another country, then if they say no, can you search that? What's the...
No, we're going to ask them for more data.
If they say no, I'm not married.
No, then we're going to go on this affidavit.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't know why I asked so many questions on that one.
I thought they were good questions.
Oh, all right. Well, that's good. They say there's not... Yeah, hit it. Hit the bell. All right, good.
All right, this is the T47, which y'all know this document better than me, so I won't spend a lot of time here. But I do want to point out just a few things because I am going to have this signed at closing, and a lot of times I'm asked why. Because at the very beginning of the transaction, obviously you're doing this document, which is perfect. But I'm trying to close in the gap from the time that you did this 30, 45 days ago and the closing date. Because of the fact that we naturally have a gap, you're going to put one on at listing. I'm going to have one done at closing, just so neither of us have any kind of gap in our affidavit. But I won't waste your time here because I know you know this document better than I even know it, with just filling out the state and then the year that they actually had that survey last completed.
All right. That's very good. And this one gets notarized, huh?
Yes.
Who's a notary?
All of us.
All of us?
Mm-hmm. My
All
whole
right.
office is a notary.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, so I'm going to just bring up the time. We have 3 minutes for our normal session. We are going to go over, I do want to cover these in depth. You said that you could cover it in 15 minutes, but I talk too much.
Well,
and there's good questions. You have knowledge, so we're asking questions.
Okay.
So stay tuned as long as you want. We're going to go over the time limit here. Boom.
Okay, this one's just an easy one. Affiliated business. We're showing you that we're using National TaxNet, and National TaxNet is a company we own, and because we're using them to provide the tax certificate, we have to give that disclosure.
Do most realtors have affiliated business arrangements?
It depends on size.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we are adamantly against that. We have no affiliated business arrangements. We don't get paid by anybody. Nobody owns us.
That's awesome.
So that is
well, then not here at the Acquisto team.
You got it. All right. Ready?
Yep.
Boom. Next topic.
Okay, this is the tax agreement. Also, pretty short, but what we're making sure that the sellers and buyers both know is that they are responsible for tax prorations. Mainly, after closing, we're using the last known tax bill at closing, but if somebody was going to want to reprorate after closing, whether it was the seller or buyer, it is between the seller and buyer. It's not between us at the title company or you as the realtor. A lot of times they will use y'all as the way to get contact information for the other party. But we're about to see a document here in just a second that will show you a way that we're trying to work around that so you don't have to get back involved.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, this is the payoff agreement, and this is the seller just swearing to me that they understand that I did order a payoff on their behalf and that all the payoff information is true and accurate. Those are just short affidavits, so they didn't need a lot of time.
All right, so what about now if you make the payoff and they made a payment in between and something weird happens?
Well, if they made a payment in between, they're going to get a refund after closing, and that is a common question. Also, taxes. People are going to ask us about those taxes because, I've been paying into my escrows all year long, and now you're collecting them at closing and doing a proration. Well, you're going to get that refund after closing. I know y'all already know that answer, but that is probably my most common question at this time of year.
Yep. Well, no, that's a good question. And the reason I asked is because maybe we'll share this with some sellers or buyers later on, and they're watching it, so they would like to know that question.
Absolutely.
But it always gets trued up. Like the file has to be
right.
like totally 0, 0.
Exactly. Now, they have 45 days.
Yes.
So the payoff lender does have 45 days to get you that money. And I always recommend calling them and make sure they have the forwarding address, because you don't want that check bouncing around after closing, because this is no longer the seller's address, and that's the address they have.
That actually is really good advice.
Well, good.
And you'll cover that later. There's a document for that.
It's next.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, it was perfect
really good.
timing.
Boom,
It was good. So this next one is the seller and buyer information sheet, and this one is very important to us. And the reason being is this should help facilitate, after closing, any communication with either side. So those taxes I was telling y'all about, if they want to go back and reprorate and they contact us, we don't have to put them on to y'all. We can say, okay, no problem. We can give you their mailing address to send a demand letter to. By them completing this, we have let them know that they're okay with us sharing this information to the other party if needed. Also, if we were contacted by the payoff lender, because Kurt, in this case, failed to call them and give that information of where he is now. And let's just say it's a large payoff lender that knows, hey, you paid us off, you're probably not there anymore. What's their address? I can pull up the sheet and give it to him so that Kurt's money isn't bouncing from Frisco to New Jersey.
Okay. And do you ever go through and advise people to use USPS mail forwarding and change that there too?
No, we don't at closing.
Okay.
Now it is something that we probably should look at even talking about. It's just not something that I've talked about at closing, to be honest with you. But of course, we would hope that people put it forwarded on their stuff.
It works reasonably. It's not perfect, but at least if there's something there, it could potentially help them
Catch it.
Yeah, it's possible. All right, hit the next item. We are on to error and omissions.
Error and omission. So this is us putting each party on the line that says that if there was an error or omission on the document, a document I either created with false or incorrect information, omitted information, or just had a typographical or clerical issue in the body of the document, that the seller or buyer are agreeing that they'll sign it. Now, I will stress at the closing table, this cannot cause for financial impact to the buyer or seller. This would just be an error or omission document.
So if my legal name is Michael and I put Mike.
That's right.
Then I would go back and change that if they requested that.
Yes. Or let's just say that maybe after closing on this example, 109 Robertson Lane, it should have been 109 Robertson Drive. So I might need to change those documents over, and that was just a typographical issue on our end.
Hey, you're pretty knowledgeable.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right.
So now, okay, this is the big boy, guys. Okay, so, sorry.
Hit it twice.
Here we go.
Good.
So this is the big boy.
3 times.
Was it? But
well,
it's
I hit
that
once
big.
and you hit it twice.
But it's that big of a document because it could be exciting. Okay?
All right.
So the sellers are obviously worried about paying capital gains. Okay. Every seller has 2 questions. What am I making on the house, and do I have to pay taxes on it? And this is the document where questions are going to get asked in order to know if they have to pay capital gains. So just so that you know this document is filled with double negatives. You don't need to be an expert on this document, but I want to run you through it because this obviously is the second most important document to that seller. So they're going to look to you like for assurance that this is correct. The TIN number is just the social security number. And then these questions are what I'm going to ask at closing, and they can read for themselves. That they've owned the residence for for 2 of the last 5 years. They have not sold or exchanged any other principal residence in the last 2. That they have been married during the portion of this residential ownership time frame. And where does the sales price fall? So if they're a single person, $250,000 or less, or if they're married, $500,000 or less. Okay? And we're going to ask them if they've ever been involved with a 1031 exchange on this property specifically. Now, the answers to those questions are going to tell us if they need to pay for capital gains or if we're going to send them a 1099 after closing. So what we're looking for here is true, 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 not applicable, on this last question. Okay?
All right, so talk about the $500,000.
Okay.
Because it's a gain.
Uh-huh.
And how is that calculated? So the gain is not, do I have $500,000 of equity in the property?
So for our 1099 purposes, there's two different sides of the road. For our 1099, it goes on sales price. Now, their CPA is going to justify them down on that to make sure that there's where the gain falls.
Mm-hmm.
But the burden of the 1099 is going to happen if the sales price is over $500,000. And then they will get a 1099 from us, and their CPA will help them to get that down. Obviously, using the closing statement, using the closing costs, and getting us down to that nut. And then from that nut, they'll make further justifications on it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. It's fine. Ready for the next document?
All right. This is telling them that they understand what the settlement agent's responsibility in the transaction is. This is going to be talking about FIRPTA. Okay. So remember on that seller information sheet where I asked if the seller was a U.S. citizen, this is telling you that it is the buyer's responsibility to ask for FIRPTA withholdings to be made on a transaction where the seller is a foreign person.
Yeah, this becomes contentious if not. We've had one, I can't remember exactly what it was, but they were saying like, hey, will you allow us not to do that? And we're like, no, we're not. No one's going to take that liability for you, bro.
Right, exactly. Nobody's going to, and that's why we're exactly having this form signed, removing the liability from us, because obviously we're only as good as the information we're provided if the seller tells us they are a foreign person or not. Mm-hmm. And then it is the buyer's responsibility. I've had some that get hostile. Yeah. At closing. In fact, the few that we do see, they all get pretty hostile.
Yes. And then because they're worried about it because they're going to have this money withheld and then they have to prove stuff.
That's right.
So that it's not.
And it's going to be held by the IRS.
Yeah, that's a scary place for your money to go.
Yeah, and they feel like it's going into a sinking hole. We do have a lot of good CPAs that we recommend, obviously off-site, that are FIRPTA experts in their own right, that can help your sellers. If your sellers are the ones caught in this situation, either help them to file the appropriate forms and delay closing so that they can get an exemption on this, or to help them at least understand where the money's going, how they're going to get it back, and they're not just blind thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to the IRS, it's in a black hole, like you said, Mike, and they're never going to get it back. So we will make those recommendations if need be.
Well, I didn't call the IRS a black hole. I think you just did.
I think I did.
But, okay. And then this would be something key that they should talk about in advance, would be really, really good planning.
Yes.
If you have a seller that is a foreign national.
That's right.
Right. Then immediately, first thing to do, probably right when you get the listing agreement signed, because you know where it's going to go, it's eventually going to get under contract and we're eventually going to see this document at some point. They should probably get with a FIRPTA attorney or at least understand what they're doing.
That's
so
correct.
Maybe if you could send me the FIRPTA guy that you recommend, the attorney, I'll post it to this TNT section and we can get back to it so everyone can have that.
Sure thing.
That was a good idea on your part. All right.
Okay, now here is that number one most exciting document, the disbursement authorization. This is how we're going to get. Oh,
you didn't.
I didn't do my job.
What
a disappointment! I'm sorry.
How'd you know that was the next document?
Well, I looked over here.
Oh, you're looking. All right, good.
So here's the disbursement authorization form, and this is just us asking them how they want their money. Real simple: wire, check, or if we're doing an in-house transfer where they're selling and buying, obviously option 3. This is self-explanatory to people, and we'll walk them through how to fill out that wire information. Now, I know y'all are asking, what safety precautions do we have at Fidelity in order to ensure that people's money, we're doing everything we can to verify these wiring instructions with the rampant wire fraud out there. So we do have a 3-stage process that once we get this at closing, obviously you can see we've verified this information at the closing table in this section. But we're also going to call again to verify the information. And then we're going to call again. We're going to be real close friends with Kurt in this example. We're going to call again to let them know that that money has gone out so that they're quickly able to look for the money and let us know if for some reason they had an issue.
All right. And what if maybe the seller's wife wants to get some cash real quick to go buy shoes immediately thereafter? Is that allowed?
If they
Do
want
you disperse cash for shoes?
I don't, because the Armour Vans, they weren't working out real good.
All right.
But we will give them a check if they'd like, but I don't recommend it with a 10-day hold. But I mean, we'll give it to them if they want it.
So they're not going to get shoes right afterwards?
No, I don't. I mean, unless we can wire quickly and they could get over to the bank.
All right. So there we go. That's the disbursement authorization.
All right. So this is in the case that we did have to give them a 1099. Okay. So in this case, when we went and asked those questions, now we found out in this example that they need a 1099. Now, the 1099 from us to them, remember, is just on sales price. So the justification later, we're going to explain to them that they just need to get to a CPA. We're just going to have them give us their name, their social, their percentage of ownership, their mailing address, and their signature here. At this point, they're not happy. They don't want a 1099, but we're trying to soften the blow by letting them know that a good CPA will be able to show them different deductions that they can take to justify the cost down as little as possible. Okay, the last but longest document, and I promise this is the last one, but this here is the closing document form. And this is a waiver of inspection that you understand that we're not inspecting that property. We're mainly looking for tenants, people who might be able to claim that they had right to possession of the property. So squatters.
Squatters, well, if they have a lease, they're not a squatter.
Right. No, we're saying that we have not inspected this property, us as the title company, for anybody who could claim parties in possession.
Okay.
Now, obviously, if that was something the client wanted because they were from a different state, that this is common form of practice, we can definitely get our attorneys involved and they can get this inspection done for them.
To see if there's a squatter? Okay.
So, number 2 and 3, these are not going to really go with most transactions. Number 2 would be if we're issuing a policy rejection form. Again, this is not something that you're really going to see a lot of. And number 3 is a policy premium pass-through. This is really for a certain type of investor business. If they were facilitating 2 transactions in one, but getting 1 policy. Then number 4 is if they receive the title commitment. Number 5 is if it's unsurveyed property, which is not very common, but I guess in a little land deal, it's possible. And number 6 is acceptance of the survey. Number 7 is that additional survey coverage, if they're getting it or not, and which was elected here. And that's going to obviously be on page 2 of the sales contract. So we're already going to know if that area and boundary coverage is going to be issued or not.
You like extra coverage, right? Extra endorsements. It drives up the price.
Yes.
She endorses it.
So property tax prorations, that they understand that these property taxes are being prorated at closing. Exemptions are the responsibility of the buyer. So homestead exemption, and this is where I'll talk to them about all the junk mail they're going to be getting, and that they're going to kill multiple trees with all the junk. But that the homestead exemption is a free service, and how the steps they take to get it. And then this is homeowners association. It's going to be the buyer's responsibility after closing. We're collecting to get it done at the closing table with the transfer fees and any current dues paid, but it will become their responsibility after closing.
And then there you go. All right. So in total, you said there was 22 documents here.
I made that up.
You made, okay.
Yeah.
So that wasn't real fast.
It could be.
No, but it was good. I liked how fast you said it. When you say it with conviction, then it seems right.
It could have happened.
All right, so
I'm going to count them right after.
Yeah, so this document here is, I don't know, well, I can see however many pages this was. This was 28 pages of documents that we went over here today. Typically, how many pages are in a total closing for you?
In a seller's form, probably about right under 30.
Okay, and then the buyer's side, when you total everything up there.
It depends on who the lender is. Let's just say it's a standard lender, 110.
Wow. And then all total paper when it's all said and done, and you look at that file, about how thick are those files when you get some crazy ones?
A standard here, now I did have one last week that was about this. It was a 2-liter. Yeah. We did serve champagne in that closing, so it was pretty good, but we got through it.
All right. Very good. So I appreciate the fact that you came on and explained stuff to us and brought some real knowledge to us. And I'm also appreciative that we're getting to know each other a little bit better because you are a real person.
Yes.
Yeah, you're a real person. And you have a personality and character and all those things. And you've been really, really good. So thank you for coming in today. You were here early today.
Efficiency.
Yeah. Now, do you encourage people to show up early at closing?
As long as they're on time, we are happy.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Most common thing that people forget at a closing.
Cashier's check.
And what do they do instead?
They run and get it after closing.
Okay. All right. So
no, a lot of times, if they haven't, it is a true thing. Somebody forgets it. Or sometimes, second most common is they forget their spouse.
Whoa.
I'm serious, guys. People don't know that if they're married, the spouse, let's just say that the husband is the borrowing on all the loan documents, that they don't think that, oh my gosh, my wife needs to be here. She is signing that deed of trust. So if they're married in Texas, please bring them both to closing.
Or in advance do a power of attorney. Do you like that?
Sure. I mean, we will definitely issue a power of attorney, but make sure that if the buyer's getting that power of attorney, we know in advance so that lender can give us approval on it.
And about how long does that take?
I need about 5 days to get the lender approval and make sure and get it to them to sign and back. Yeah.
Yep. And then
I can do it in one.
Okay. And then how much longer does it take for the buyer's spouse to sign, because they have to sign everything in some crazy long lingo?
Well, they're not really happy. And I would make sure they have full disclosure that the other spouse who didn't come is probably the one who's unpacking the house, okay? Because they are not going to be friends after closing. That's going to take us, if it was an hour closing, it's probably going to take an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Because what happens then is the person has to sign. So in this situation, if Sean is at closing for me, then she's going to sign roughly, it's going to say something like.
It's going to say, Mike Acquisto by Shauna Acquisto, attorney in fact.
And then she has to write that.
That's correct.
Every time.
That's correct.
And then how does she sign it?
So she's going to sign your name by her name, and then she's going to write attorney in fact.
Yep.
And her hand is going to hurt.
Yeah, no, it does a lot. So every single time that she would be signing my name, she writes that instead. And she would sign her side as well. Right.
And then she's signing her side as well. So by the time she's done with that, Mike is the one unpacking the house. It is not going to go good.
All right. And then they have to date a lot of documents too.
They do. Yeah. I mean, every time there's a signature, they need to anticipate that there's a date.
Yeah, that would make sense. It always shocks me when some documents like, no, we don't need to date that one. It's kind of like, whoa, that's weird.
It is weird, but it's happening more and more.
Okay. All right. And going to e-closings at some point.
Yes. So there's 2 different types, obviously. Right now, we can, on the ground, for certain counties, we can do a cash buyer, no problem. We can also offer DocuSign closings for a cash buyer. Now,
let's go with mobile closing first, since we have some good mobile closers here, don't we?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We're the best of the best. Well, I have Karen and April, who are actually my marketing reps.
Oh, all right.
And they're here. They can come on the live screen here. And then we also, they used to own North Texas Notary, and I convinced them.
Have a seat. Tell them all about it.
Tell them.
Into the camera.
What do you want us to say?
Tell them why how a mobile closing works and what it's all about.
Okay. Well, mobile closings are fun. They're actually kind of neat for the buyers or the sellers. We can go to their office, to their house, meet them in 2 separate locations, meet at a Starbucks, sign them, go through all the documents just as Morgan just did. And we're fully capable of explaining everything. And then we'll return the documents back to the title company and let Morgan do her thing, get it funded, and the buyers or the sellers actually never have to come into the title office.
A lot of times, our world is a fast world, so people are very busy at their jobs, and so this is an extra service that a lot of people like to work around their schedule better. At Fidelity, we do offer this service for free. We will send somebody anywhere in the U.S. To help facilitate a transaction and get it back to us. So even if they are visiting their mother in Oklahoma, no problem. We'll get that done.
All right, so if anybody wants me to do a closing for them, I will do the closing here. Everybody comes to me, and I'll take care of it when the agents are busy or out of town or any one of those things. I do think that somebody should be at closing. So how far in advance do we have to tell you? Because a lot of the times my wife gets busy or something happens, right? So then she can't make the closing. So she's like, hey, Mike, can you handle this closing? I'm like, yeah, I can. And how about you have them all come here? We'll close them right here. So how far in advance do I have to tell you that?
24 hours would be best, just so we can line up and make sure that we, one, have all the documents we need from the lender to get them to the notary and get the notary that we would like within a timely manner.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, I'm in. Good, sounds good. Is there anything else you want to go over?
No, I think I'm good today, but tune back in. I'm coming back for divorce.
Whoa, you're coming back?
I am. I'm coming
okay.
back.
She just invited herself.
Yeah. All right, and which one's April and which one's Kara?
I'm Kara, and I'm April.
Yep.
All right.
Oh, April Fools.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
April Fools, yep.
Have a good day. Do you need me to do something?
I'll do this.
I invited myself.
I thought that was great, Morgan. Mike, that was good.
Yeah, that was all right. All right, let's see. We'll stop recording.